Following his report last week, Kotaku's Jason Schreier decided to clarify what he meant when he said Fallout 76 will be an online survival RPG. Hey guys, JV here, and today I'm discussing Jason's post on our Fallout. But before we get into that, just a heads up, you can find daily streams of the newest games, as well as commentaries just like this over on my Facebook page. So check out the link in the description below and stay tuned for tons of awesome content. If you missed my previous video, I lined out Jason's initial report that Fallout 76 would be an online survival RPG and why I believe he will be correct. On Friday, he elaborated further on his wording and perspective in his report. So let's take a look. His post reads, "I had forgotten how passionate the Fallout community can get. After I reported on Fallout 4's existence in 2013, people here first spent 2 years calling me a liar, and then when it was confirmed, they just yelled at me for, quote, spoiling the surprise. But hey, I'm also a big fan of this series, and in fact may or may not have just started replaying Fallout 4 on my PC in the wake of this week's news. I've seen a lot of rage and confusion and denial on this subreddit, so I just wanted to chime in to say a couple of things. One is that after publishing my story, I heard from a few other sources, in addition to the 3 mentioned in the article, corroborating that Fallout 76 is an online game. If you're really still in denial, I guess you can wait until June 10th, but hey, don't say I didn't tell you. The second thing is that I'm very optimistic about this game. The buzz I'm hearing, both first and secondhand, is that it's really cool, interesting, and just as story-focused as any other Bethesda Game Studios game. It might have multiplayer and base building, but hey, it's still a Fallout game. I don't want to drive hype for a game I haven't seen or played, but I also don't want people to be so close-minded that they spend the next 9 days freaking out every day on Reddit because this game isn't going to be like the last 3. I mean, how many of you remember when hardcore Fallout fans flipped a ship because Bethesda was making a first-person shooter? I think that in retrospect, I shouldn't have tweeted that anyone expecting a single-player traditional Fallout will be very disappointed. Really, I should have said that they'll be very surprised. I wanted and still want to make sure people's expectations are calibrated accordingly. Short version, yes, Fallout 76 is going to be a multiplayer RPG. No, that's not automatically a bad thing. Just like all of you, I'm stoked to see the game on June 10th, and I'm optimistic that it's going to be really cool. P.S. Special shout out to those of you who aren't sending me nasty and anti-Semitic messages on Twitter. Yeah, of course that's happening. So there are several key things, key highlights from this message. First off, he's talking about people not believing him. I've already spoken at length how I feel about Jason, so I'm not going to get into that further. The first highlight is that he says he's heard even more sources confirm that Fallout 76 will be an online game. But of course, there's a lot of rage and mostly denial. I don't think there's a ton of confusion. It's mostly rage and denial. Confusion is only, we don't know what the game is, how could this work? Rage is, I don't want this, and denial is, this isn't happening. And I tip my cap to Jason. Fallout 76 is going to be an online game whether people like it or not, and we will see that confirmed on June 10th. The next and most important piece of this is that he clarifies that the game is really cool, interesting, and just as story-focused as any other Bethesda Game Studios game. And we know from their track record that Bethesda Game Studios is about story. That's something they care about. Now, you could argue all day long whether the main story is good or not, but they tell a lot of interesting side stories. But as a whole, we recognize Bethesda Game Studios games as story, narrative-focused games with other RPG elements going on. If I'm a die-hard, hardcore 3D first-person shooter Fallout fan, I'm saying fans of 3, New Vegas, and 4, then this has to be the most reassuring thing, right? He says it's still a Fallout game. It's going to have multiplayer, it's going to have base building like 4, but it's still, a Fallout game. And also, he clarifies that he hasn't seen or played the game. He's only heard about it from his sources. But the thing is, you have to be either dumb or incredibly naive to not take his words seriously. Just dumb. Of course, he points out the hypocrisy when everyone flipped out that Fallout was going to be made by Bethesda Game Studios. Believe it or not, leading up to October 2008, when Fallout 3 came out, a lot of people were apprehensive about Fallout 3 because of the previous Fallout games, right? They were made by different studios, and therefore they were going to be different. This represents another shift in that. However, I think it's going to be far less of a shift than people realize. It's the same studio, right? But they're taking a franchise that we know and love in a slightly different direction. But again, it's still a Fallout game. Jason goes back again and says he should have said people would be surprised instead of disappointed. But I think he's drawing on what he knows about the Fallout community, and he was clearly proven correct. Some of us are crazy, insane, just insane. In his TLDR, he calls Fallout 76 a multiplayer RPG. And you know what? I think a ton of people would kill for a Fallout multiplayer RPG. That's something we've been talking about in between Fallouts, in between our grumblings about how awful Fallout 4 was. Everyone's been wondering about a Fallout Online. Maybe not necessarily an MMO, but a co-op game where you can go and experience the game with friends. But even the way that he words it, it sounds like it's going to be even different from that. If we're going to be surprised, it's not just going to be Fallout 4 with co-op. That's not super surprising. It's going to be something more or different or unique. So we'll have to wait and see. I wanted to close out this video by kind of wrapping up my thoughts on Fallout 76 before it gets announced. I don't think there's going to be any other major news. If there is, obviously I'll cover it. Ahead of the reveal, no matter what, people will complain. And even after the reveal, people will complain about what it is and what they wanted it to be. They will cry and moan about whatever it is. But here's a thought. Maybe let's try and let Fallout 76 stand on its own. Let it be what it is. If it's not for you, that's perfectly fine, because not all games are made for you. Doesn't matter if you're a Fallout fan or not. But let's maybe let this thing stand on its own for once. Let's open our minds. Let's be open to new experiences. Let's let an IP like Fallout that we love and adore and play constantly introduce us to new kinds of games. And let's trust Bethesda. Let's trust in their creative vision and give them a chance to show us something that they think that we will like, instead of jumping all over it and thinking it's going to be bad if it's not what you used to do. You got to think as a creative person when you're kind of, on the consumer side of things. These creative people are trying to innovate. They're trying to make something new that they think we will enjoy and that they think is fun to them, right? People make games that they want to play. It doesn't matter what studio you're at. If it's a successful studio, they make games that they want to play. Clearly, whatever Fallout 76 is, Bethesda wants to play it. Let's just put down our pitchforks and take a deep breath and see what Fallout 76 is all about. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. In the comment section below, tell me what you think about this clarification of Fallout 76 as a multiplayer RPG. Does that ease you and what your expectation of what the game will be, or something else? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more commentaries just like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.